He is striving to go down in history as the new Stalin, and he is often portrayed in that image. But step by step, his path is increasingly resembling that of a completely different Soviet figure, the one the Kremlin leader would least like to be compared to. Before our eyes, an ironic paradox is unfolding. Russia, which dreamed of greatness, once again finds itself trapped by its own history, where cycles repeat one after another, as if following a script. The war, which was conceived as an act of geopolitical revival, has turned into a means of preservation. The political system is paralyzed, power remains unchanged, and ideas are not born but merely repeated. The current state of the economy is not growing, but is merely slowly adapting to new realities. This specific condition has a name that the Kremlin would much rather not hear. It is a typical stagnation reminiscent of the Brezhnev era, now accompanied by both war and heavy repression, a toxic and volatile combination that makes the entire situation even more dangerous. But the main thing that worries many people today is the answer to the fundamental question, what exactly comes next? And this is where an interesting concept by the well-known Russian scholar Alexander Prokhorov comes in handy. In his detailed model, events are not chaotic but entirely predictable. And right now, Russia is rapidly approaching the definitive end of another historical cycle. What exactly does this ending mean for the nation, and what will happen next? What specific stage will come after the fall of the current regime? What are they preparing for, and what should we be preparing for? Watch the video to find out more. We'll discuss it in the comments afterwards. But first, subscribe to this channel and click the bell to get notifications about new videos. Don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment below. By doing so, you help promote this video. And if you'd like to support the creator, please check out Patreon and buy me a coffee. You can find all the links down in the description and the first pinned comment. Making predictions is a thankless task, but when there are too many signs, it's no longer just a hunch. It's observing a consistent pattern. The history of Russia isn't random chaos, but a cycle that repeats itself with stubborn persistence. Every successive new era isn't unique, but rather merely a subtly repainted old one. While only the external facades change, the mechanisms of power, behavioral patterns, and even the timing repeat with an almost perfect mathematical precision. For Russian propaganda, Stalin has long become a sacred figure. He is demonized but at the same time imitated. Putin is regularly depicted in the style of Stalin, the father of the people, both literally and metaphorically. Bronze statues, tunics, superhuman wisdom, a cult of strength and silence. Ultra-patriots portray Putin as a powerful iron leader, ready to fundamentally reshape the world. But this is just wishful thinking. A propagandist phantom that falls apart when you try to compare the complex essence of the regime. Because Stalin was the tyranny of movement, bloody, insane, inhuman, but directed forward, toward modernization, industrialization, and the transformation of the country itself. Stalin built a new empire at the cost of millions of lives, through famine, terror, and concentration camps, but with a clear goal of reconstruction. Putin is something entirely different. This is not a project of creation, it is a system of self-preservation. Putin's Russia is nothing like Stalin's dynamism. It's Brezhnev-era stagnation with new decorations. Just like under Brezhnev, everything appears stable, but that stability is simply a fear of change. The entire system is closed in on itself. No one takes risks, no one proposes anything new. Everyone simply plays by the unspoken rules of survival. Back in the 1970s, this was often referred to as preserving the achievements of socialism. Whereas today, it's called defending traditional values. Even the war did not change this model. On the contrary, it preserved it even more. Just as the introduction of troops into Afghanistan in 1979 was not a show of strength but a symptom of collapse, so too the invasion of Ukraine is not a rising from the knees, but the convulsion of an empire before its fall. The empire does not renew itself, it rots from within. The direct parallels between the current Putin-era stagnation and the Brezhnev era are striking. The unchanging nature of power. Back then it was the Politburo, now it's the same security officials who have been in place for decades. Personnel rotations are merely decorative. A ritualized ideology. Back then it was peace and friendship, now it's the Russian world. The forms change, but the essence remains the same. A set of phrases that don't work, but everyone is required to repeat them. An economy of adaptation. No breakthroughs, just patching holes, import substitution without actual imports or substitution. Repressive stability, not on the Stalinist scale, but with Brezhnev-era regularity. Arrests, persecutions, bans, these are no longer exceptions, but the system itself. And although the number of victims in Russia is not yet in the millions, the fear is real and the pressure is all-encompassing. A cult of the past, not the future. Back then it was victory in war, now again victory in war. It is a focus on history instead of a development program. The regime stages a Stalinist spectacle, but lives by the templates of the Brezhnev era. And this is much more dangerous, because the Brezhnev stagnation is not the pomp of terror, but a slow degradation that merely appears to be stability. Between the years of 1979 and 1982, the Soviet Union appeared monolithic. But just a few short years later, its foundations crumbled completely. At the time, that seemed impossible. Today it seems impossible too, but cycles have a way of coming full circle. If they really are in the latest version of the Brezhnev stagnation, then how will all this end? And more importantly, when? And here, stepping onto our stage, is not a politician or an ideologue, but a person who has spent many years studying the inner workings of the Russian system from the inside. His name is the scientist Alexander Prokhorov, and he is the one who has the answer. If you look at Russian history without emotion, it gives the impression that it's not a linear movement forward, but rather a series of rotations along a closed trajectory. It seems that in every new cycle, the country goes through the same phases: stability, stagnation, an attempt at a breakthrough, catastrophe, a brief surge of renewal, and then stability again. Just with new protagonists, but the same scenery. It was exactly this specific concept that Russian researcher Alexander Prokhorov, author of the bestseller The Russian Management Model, sought to deeply comprehend and systematically formalize. Prokhorov is not a political commentator or an opposition publicist. He spent many years working in the real sector, from the Yaroslavl tire plant to university departments. His overarching conceptual framework is an ambitious attempt to look at the Russian system as a biological survival mechanism that gradually evolved over time, not thanks to freedom, but due to climate and fear. He asserts that the Russian management model was shaped in exceptionally harsh conditions, where for most of the year, the main task was not simply to work, but rather to survive. This led to the habit of living in two distinct modes: a winter one, passive existence, and a summer one, intense activity for a short period. Hence the sudden bursts of emergency mobilization and extended periods of inertia. This rhythm is not just a habit, it is embedded in the very structure of the system. According to Prokhorov, all of Russian history is a pendulum swinging between two states, a phase of stagnation and a phase of reform. In the stagnation phase, the system is preserved, repressions are selective, punishments are symbolic, and power is unshakable. And most importantly, people are not fired for poor performance, but are rewarded for loyalty. This is a time of mutual forgiveness among the bureaucracy, when a minister does not punish a subordinate for a failure, because tomorrow that subordinate will cover up the minister's own failure. According to Prokhorov, such a phase can last for 10 to 15 years and gives the population an illusion of stability, but deep within the system, an abscess is forming. Then comes the transition. The country enters a period of reforms not because of conscious will, but because of collapse. The reform phase is always a period of intense upheaval. People are no longer punished for disloyalty, but for inefficiency. Those who were convenient during the stagnation are swept away. Opportunists, bold adventurers, and ambitious new leaders all rise to the surface. Chaos, bloodshed, and harsh shock therapy. That's how it was after Stalin's death, after the era of Brezhnev and during the 90s. And every single time, it follows the very same script. But where is Russia now? Even back in 2023, Prokhorov openly stated the Russian Federation is at the end of the stagnation phase. This is evident from a whole range of signs. the authorities remain unchanged but have lost the ability to renew themselves. Any innovation is seen as a threat, not an opportunity. Instead of reforms, there is a ritualistic fight against internal and external enemies. The elites are disoriented, loyal, but lack faith and a vision for the future. Society is demobilized. Lacking in enthusiasm, trust, and future prospects, outward bravado does not conceal a sense of inner fatigue. The economy operates in a survival mode, incapable of achieving breakthroughs. The ideological vacuum is filled by repeating the same set of slogans. The regime overestimates its own stability and underestimates the limits of patience. The prospect of a transfer of power is taboo, which makes regime change uncontrollable. This is the state of a frozen system that no longer manages the future. It only postpones the inevitable. Formally, there is order. In reality, there is decay which has not yet begun openly, but everyone inside already feels it. And even if no one says it out loud, the same question is in everyone's eyes. How much longer? This central question hangs in the air. If they really are on the verge of a reform phase, then when will the shift happen? And what exactly will it look like? Will it be a velvet restructuring, a new revolution,